Nathaniel Carrington
Don't
didn't
let
look
them
at
take
people when
Mummy
they
away.
apologized to him.
No,
Not waiters,
please stop.
not assistants, not
Did you just
employees,
call him Dad?
and definitely not housemates. By 39, he had become the kind of billionaire people whispered about before he entered a room. The kind whose signature moved stock markets. The kind whose cold silence terrified executives more than screaming ever could. That night, his mansion glowed like something pulled from a magazine cover. Crystal chandeliers spilled golden light across marble floors. Politicians laughed beside Hollywood producers. Women in silk gowns floated through the ballroom, carrying champagne worth more than most people's rent. Outside, rain hammered against the windows hard enough to sound angry. Inside, Nathaniel stood beside his fiancée, Vanessa Whitmore, while investors toasted the future merger between the Carrington empire and her father's company. Everything was perfect, until the wine hit him. The glass slipped from trembling fingers. Red wine exploded across Nathaniel's white shirt and dark suit jacket. The ballroom gasped. For one long second, nobody moved. Then Nathaniel slowly looked down at the stains spreading across his chest. The woman holding the tray looked barely able to breathe. I'm so sorry, sir, she whispered. Her voice shook so badly the words almost disappeared. Nathaniel stared at her without blinking. She wore the plain black uniform all house staff wore during events, but unlike the others, she looked exhausted. Pale. Her dark hair had started slipping loose from its bun, and there were faint shadows beneath her eyes like she hadn't slept in weeks. Vanessa stepped backward immediately to avoid the spill. "Oh my God," she muttered. "Are you serious right now?" The guests nearby began whispering. Nathaniel finally spoke. "Look at what you did." His voice wasn't loud. That made it worse. The woman swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carrington. The floor was wet, and so now the floor is responsible." A few guests laughed quietly. The woman's face burned red with humiliation. "I can pay for the cleaning," she said quickly. Nathaniel actually let out a short laugh. "You?" He looked her up and down slowly. "This suit costs more than your yearly salary." Silence crashed through the ballroom. Vanessa smirked into her champagne glass. The woman looked like she wanted the marble floor to swallow her whole. Nathaniel took the napkin from a nearby server and wiped his jacket once before tossing the stained cloth directly onto her tray. "You people have one job," he said coldly. "One." The words hit harder than the wine. The woman lowered her eyes immediately, but Nathaniel still caught the flicker of pain across her face. Not anger, not embarrassment. Pain. Like life had already hit her enough times before he decided to join in. But Nathaniel wasn't in the mood for sympathy tonight. "Security," he said. Two men near the ballroom entrance immediately straightened. "Escort her out." The woman looked up sharply. "Please," she said quietly. "I really need this job." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "And I need competent employees." "Nathaniel," one older investor murmured carefully. "Maybe it was just an accident." Nathaniel turned his head slightly. And accidents cost money. Nobody defended her after that. That was the thing about power. Once the richest man in the room decided someone was worthless, most people followed his lead. The woman gripped the tray tighter as security approached her. "I said I was sorry," she whispered again. Nathaniel didn't answer. He had already dismissed her in his mind. The guards gently took her arm, and that should have been the end of it. But suddenly, "Mom!" A small voice echoed through the ballroom. Everyone turned. A little girl stood near the entrance, soaked from the rain outside. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her tiny sneakers squeaked against the marble floor as she ran inside, breathing hard, clutching a worn pink backpack against her chest. The security guards froze. The woman's entire face drained of color. "Lily," she whispered in horror. The child looked terrified. "Mama, I couldn't stay in the car anymore," she cried. "I was scared." Then her eyes landed on Nathaniel, and everything changed. The little girl stopped moving completely. The ballroom went silent again. Even the music seemed farther away now. The child stared at Nathaniel like she recognized him from somewhere impossible. Nathaniel frowned slightly. Something about her face hit him strangely hard. Those eyes. Gray. Exactly like his. The little girl's bottom lip trembled. Then she looked up at him and said the 3 words that shattered the entire night. "Dad, please don't fire my mom." The world stopped. Nobody breathed. Vanessa slowly lowered her champagne glass. One investor actually whispered, "Jesus Christ." Nathaniel felt the blood drain from his face. The woman, Sofia, rushed toward the little girl instantly. "No, Lily, she said frantically. No, baby, don't say that. But Lily was already crying. You said my dad was a good man, the little girl sobbed. You said he just didn't know where we were. Nathaniel stared at Sofia. Sofia refused to meet his eyes. And suddenly, deep in the back of his memory, buried beneath years of money and meetings and power, a face resurfaced. A rainy summer night. A tiny apartment over a grocery store in Brooklyn. A girl laughing while wearing one of his college hoodies. Sofia Bennett. 8 years ago, before he became Nathaniel Carrington, before he learned how cruel rich people could be, Vanessa finally found her voice. Nathaniel, she whispered carefully. Who is this child? But Nathaniel couldn't answer, because the little girl standing in front of him had his eyes. His exact eyes. And for the first time in years, the most powerful man in New York looked terrified. The silence inside the ballroom became unbearable. Nobody moved. Nobody even pretended to sip their champagne anymore. Nathaniel Carrington stood frozen in the middle of his own engagement party while a little girl with his exact gray eyes cried in front of 200 wealthy strangers. Dad, please don't fire my mom. The words kept echoing in his skull. Sofia looked like she might collapse. She grabbed Lily's shoulders immediately. Baby, stop, she whispered urgently. You don't understand. But you said, Lily. This time Sofia's voice cracked hard enough to silence the child. Nathaniel stared at them both, trying to force logic back into his brain. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Not Sofia. Not after. All these years. Not now. Vanessa finally stepped closer, her face pale beneath expensive makeup. Nathaniel, she said carefully, why does that child look exactly like you? The room tightened instantly. Nathaniel ignored her. His eyes stayed locked on Sofia. Sofia, he said slowly, what is going on? She still wouldn't look at him. That's not your concern anymore. The answer hit him like a slap. Not your concern. 8 years ago, Sofia Bennett used to look at him like he was the safest place on earth. Back then, Nathaniel wasn't a billionaire yet. He was just a hungry business student trying to survive New York on caffeine and ambition. Sofia worked nights at a diner in Brooklyn while studying nursing during the day. They met because he couldn't afford fancy coffee. They stayed together because she made him feel human. A dangerous memory surfaced suddenly. Sofia dancing barefoot in his tiny apartment kitchen while cheap pasta boiled over on the stove. Laughing. Always laughing. You take life too seriously, she had told him once. And he remembered answering. Somebody has to. But Sofia had kissed him quiet before he could finish. Now that same woman looked at him like he was a loaded weapon. Lily wiped tears from her cheeks and looked up at Nathaniel again. You're really my dad, aren't you? Vanessa inhaled sharply. Several guests immediately pulled out their phones. Nathaniel finally found his voice. Everyone out. Nobody moved at first. Then Nathaniel looked toward security. Now. The room exploded into motion. Whispers filled the ballroom as guests hurried toward the exits, desperate to be the first to spread the scandal online. Vanessa grabbed Nathaniel's arm before leaving. Tell me this is a joke. He didn't answer quickly enough. Her expression hardened instantly. You've got to be kidding me. Then she walked away without another word. Within 60 seconds, the ballroom was nearly empty. Only Nathaniel, Sofia, Lily, and 2 guards remained. Rain pounded against the massive windows. Lily looked exhausted now, her wet hoodie clinging to her tiny shoulders. Nathaniel noticed something that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. Her shoes were falling apart. The soles had been glued together more than once. Sofia followed his gaze and subtly moved Lily behind her. Like she already knew rich people looked at poor children differently. Nathaniel hated that instinctively. How old is she? He asked quietly. Sofia swallowed once. 7. His stomach dropped. The timeline fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Lily looked between them nervously. Mama. It's okay, sweetheart, Sofia whispered, though she clearly didn't believe it herself. Nathaniel stepped closer slowly. What happened to you? He asked Sofia. She let out a small bitter laugh. That's funny coming from you. What's that supposed to mean? Her eyes finally met his, and the hurt inside them almost knocked the air from his lungs. You really don't remember what happened after you left me? Nathaniel frowned. I didn't leave you. Yes, you did. No, he snapped. You disappeared. For the first time all night, genuine confusion crossed Sofia's face. What? Nathaniel felt anger creeping into his chest now. Old anger. Buried anger. You left a note saying you were done with me. Sofia stared at him, then slowly shook her head. I never wrote you a note. The room went completely still again. Nathaniel blinked. What? I waited for you, Sofia whispered. For weeks. A strange cold feeling moved through his body. That's impossible. But Sofia looked genuinely shaken. I thought you chose your new life over us. Us. Not me. Us. Nathaniel suddenly looked at Lily again. The child was watching both of them carefully, like she could feel the emotional earthquake happening in real time. Then his phone vibrated violently in his pocket. One text message. From his mother. Get rid of them before the press destroys this family. Nathaniel stared at the screen. And for the first time tonight, something inside him started to feel very wrong. Especially when Sofia quietly said, Your mother told me you never wanted children. And suddenly Nathaniel realized there might be far more buried in the past than a secret daughter. By midnight, the story had already hit the internet. Photos of Lily standing inside the Carrington ballroom spread across social media like wildfire. The billionaire's secret child? Mystery Maid crashes engagement party. Nathaniel Carrington accused of hidden affair. Every news outlet in New York wanted blood. Nathaniel sat alone inside his penthouse office staring at the city skyline while his phone rang nonstop. Investors, board members, publicists, Vanessa. He ignored all of them, because across from him sat a single drinking glass. Lily's, half full of apple juice. His security team had collected it after Sofia rushed the little girl home earlier that night. Nathaniel couldn't stop staring at the tiny fingerprint marks on the glass. His daughter. Maybe. The thought felt unreal. A soft knock interrupted the silence. Come in. His attorney, Daniel Reeves, stepped carefully into the office carrying a sealed medical kit. Daniel had worked for Nathaniel nearly 10 years. Long enough to recognize when his boss looked shaken. I arranged the test quietly, Daniel said. Nathaniel nodded once. No media? No leaks so far. Nathaniel leaned back slowly. Good. Daniel hesitated, then finally asked, Do you think she's yours? Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he remembered Lily's eyes again. Gray. Exactly like his father's. Exactly like his. She looked at me like she already knew me, Nathaniel admitted quietly. Daniel placed the DNA paperwork on the desk. If the results are positive, they won't be. But even Nathaniel no longer sounded convinced. Daniel left the room silently. Nathaniel stared at the paperwork for a long time before finally signing it. Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. And somewhere across the city, Sofia Bennett was probably trying to explain to a frightened little girl why she had just called a billionaire dad on live social media. The thought twisted painfully inside him. His phone rang again. This time he answered. What? You embarrassed this family tonight. His mother's voice arrived cold and sharp through the speaker. Evelyn Carrington never wasted words. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly. Not now, mother. No, now exactly. Before this becomes irreversible. She's a child. She's a liability. Nathaniel's jaw tightened instantly. You don't even know her. I know exactly what women like Sofia Bennett do. Something dangerous flashed through Nathaniel's chest. You knew her name awfully fast. Silence. Tiny, but noticeable. Then Evelyn recovered immediately. I remember all your mistakes. Nathaniel slowly sat forward. You told me Sofia left me. She did. She claims otherwise. And you believe her? Nathaniel looked out at the rain-covered skyline. I don't know what to believe. His mother's tone hardened. You're thinking emotionally. That girl appeared at your engagement party for a reason. She's 7 years old. She's evidence. The word made Nathaniel's stomach turn. Not child. Not daughter. Evidence. You need to deny everything publicly tomorrow, Evelyn continued. Your engagement can still survive this if you move quickly. Nathaniel suddenly remembered something strange. Years ago, right after Sofia vanished, his mother had unexpectedly offered him a position inside the company. Before that, Evelyn barely acknowledged him emotionally. But after Sofia disappeared, everything changed. Money, power, influence. Doors opened overnight. At the time, grief had blinded him. Now pieces felt wrong. Very wrong. What exactly did you say to Sofia back then? Nathaniel asked quietly. Evelyn's silence lasted longer this time. Then, be careful, Nathaniel. The warning came soft, which somehow made it colder. Powerful men don't survive scandals by falling in love with poor women. The call disconnected. Nathaniel stared at his dark phone screen. then suddenly grabbed his whiskey glass and hurled it across the office hard enough to shatter against the wall. For the first time in years, he was afraid of his own family. The DNA results arrived the next afternoon. Nathaniel opened the envelope alone. His hands had never shaken during billion-dollar negotiations. Now he could barely unfold paper. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. The room tilted. Nathaniel read the line again. And again. Then he sat down slowly because his legs stopped working properly. 7 years. 7 birthdays. 7 Christmas mornings. First words. First nightmares. First days of school. Gone. Not because he abandoned her. Because somebody made sure he never knew. A soft knock interrupted the silence again. Daniel opened the door carefully. Well, Nathaniel looked up slowly. His voice barely worked. She's mine. Daniel went pale. Nathaniel stared back down at the paper. But suddenly the DNA result wasn't the part destroying him most. It was remembering the look on Lily's face when she asked, "You're really my dad, aren't you?" Because now he knew the truth. And somewhere across New York, his daughter still thought he didn't want her. Nathaniel Carrington bought companies faster than most people ordered coffee. But on Saturday morning, he stood frozen in the cereal aisle of a grocery store because he had no idea what children ate for breakfast. An older woman pushing a shopping cart smiled at him. "You okay, honey?" Nathaniel stared at 2 different cartoon cereal boxes like they were legal contracts. "I honestly don't know." The woman laughed softly. "Kid." He nodded once. "Girl or boy?" "Girl." "How old?" 7. The woman pointed toward one of the boxes. "Trust me. Chocolate stars." Nathaniel picked it up like it might explode. 30 minutes later, he stood outside a tiny apartment building in Queens holding grocery bags worth more than most people's weekly food budget. Rainwater dripped from the fire escapes overhead. The neighborhood looked nothing like the world he lived in now. Too cramped. Too loud. Too real. Sofia opened the apartment door carefully. The moment she saw him standing there, exhaustion crossed her face. "You can't keep showing up unannounced." Nathaniel lifted the grocery bags slightly. "I brought breakfast." "That's concerning already." Despite herself, Sofia almost smiled. Almost. Nathaniel noticed. And somehow that hurt worse than anger. Because years ago Sofia smiled at him constantly. Now every small smile looked accidental. From deeper inside the apartment, Lily's voice suddenly shouted, "Mama, who is it?" Sofia hesitated. Nathaniel felt weirdly nervous. Then Lily appeared around the corner wearing oversized pajama pants covered in tiny clouds. Her eyes widened instantly. "You came back." 3 words. That was all. But Nathaniel felt them straight through his chest. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "I brought cereal." Lily looked genuinely amazed. For me, nobody had ever asked Nathaniel that question before. Not like that. Not with wonder instead of expectation. He nodded slowly. Lily immediately ran forward and hugged him around the waist. Pure instinct. Nathaniel completely froze. He had negotiated hostile takeovers without fear. But a 7-year-old hugging him? Terrifying. Especially because she fit there naturally. Like she belonged. Sofia watched the moment silently from the doorway. Something emotional flickered across her face before she looked away quickly. Inside the apartment, Nathaniel noticed how little they actually had. A tiny kitchen, old furniture, peeling paint near the windows, medical bills stacked beside the microwave. And suddenly the truth became impossible to ignore. While he spent millions redesigning penthouses, his daughter had been growing up here. Lily pulled on his sleeve excitedly. "Do rich people really eat pancakes every morning?" Nathaniel blinked. "I don't know." Lily gasped dramatically. "You don't even know rich people stuff?" Sofia laughed before she could stop herself. A real laugh this time. Nathaniel looked at her automatically. And for half a second, Brooklyn came rushing back again. Before silence replaced love. Before power poisoned everything. Lily climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs. "Can you make pancakes?" Nathaniel answered honestly. "Probably not." "That's okay," Lily whispered seriously. "Mama burns toast sometimes too." Sofia groaned immediately. "Lily." "What?" "It's true." Nathaniel surprised himself by laughing. Actually laughing. Not the fake business version. A real one. And the sound felt unfamiliar after so many years. 2 hours later, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone. Flour covered the counter. One pancake somehow ended up on the floor. Lily laughed so hard milk came out her nose. Nathaniel stared at the burnt pancake in his hand. "This is awful." "It's amazing," Lily declared proudly. Sofia leaned against the counter watching them carefully. But Nathaniel noticed something underneath her smile. Fear. Like she was waiting for happiness to disappear again. Then Lily suddenly asked the question that changed the room instantly. Why didn't you come find us sooner? Silence. Nathaniel looked at Sofia. Sofia looked down at the sink. And Lily immediately realized she'd asked something painful. I'm sorry, she whispered quickly. Nathaniel crouched beside her chair slowly. No, he said gently. You deserve the answer. His throat tightened unexpectedly. I didn't know you existed. Lily frowned. But Mama loved you. Nathaniel looked up sharply. Sofia froze. Lily continued innocently. She still keeps your picture in her drawer. Sofia closed her eyes immediately. Mama, Lily asked nervously. But Sofia wasn't looking at her. She was staring at Nathaniel. And for the first time since the ballroom, he saw tears gathering in her eyes. Then her phone suddenly rang. Sofia answered quickly. But the moment she heard the voice on the other end, all the color disappeared from her face. What do you mean the insurance was canceled? She whispered. Nathaniel's stomach dropped instantly. Because beside the refrigerator sat a stack of hospital papers. And across the top of one file, he saw the words congenital heart condition. Nathaniel Carrington had spent most of his life believing money solved problems. That illusion shattered the moment he saw Sofia sitting at her kitchen table, crying quietly over canceled medical insurance. The apartment suddenly felt too small for the weight inside it. Sofia lowered the phone slowly, her hands trembling. They canceled Lily's coverage, she whispered. Nathaniel stared at the stack of hospital papers again. Congenital heart condition. Follow-up surgery recommended. Cardiology department balance overdue. The words punched through him harder than any business loss ever had. Lily sat silently at the table coloring in a princess book, completely unaware her mother looked like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Nathaniel moved closer carefully. How serious is it? Sofia quickly wiped her eyes. It's manageable. That's not what I asked. She finally looked at him, and the exhaustion in her face scared him. She was born with a defect in one of her heart valves, Sofia admitted quietly. Most days she's okay, but when she gets stressed or overtired, she stopped speaking. Nathaniel's chest tightened. What happens? Sofia glanced toward Lily before lowering her voice. Sometimes she can't breathe properly. For a second, Nathaniel forgot how to stand normally. His daughter had been living with a heart condition while he attended charity galas pretending to care about children's hospitals. The hypocrisy made him sick. When was her last surgery? She hasn't had it yet. Nathaniel stared at her. What do you mean she hasn't had it yet? Sofia's silence answered first. Then quietly, I couldn't afford it. Something dark moved through him instantly. Not anger at her. At himself. At the fact that he had spent $80,000 on a watch last month, while Sofia was choosing between rent and keeping Lily alive. Nathaniel looked around the apartment again, but now he noticed details differently. The patched furniture. The outdated medicine bottles. The tiny shoes drying beside the heater. This wasn't poverty caused by laziness. This was survival. Sofia followed his expression and crossed her arms defensively. You don't get to pity us. I'm not pitying you. Yes, you are. Nathaniel stepped closer. No, he said quietly. I'm realizing what I missed. That hit her harder than yelling would have. Lily suddenly looked up from the table. Mama works all the time. Sofia immediately forced a smile. Baby, she does, Lily continued innocently. Sometimes she sleeps in the laundry room at work because she's too tired to drive home. Nathaniel froze. What? Sofia looked furious now. Lily. But the little girl kept talking. She says rich people notice clean floors more than tired people. Nathaniel felt physically ill. Because Sofia worked in his mansion. Every day? While raising his daughter alone. And he never even recognized her. How long? He asked quietly. Sofia didn't answer. How long have you worked for me? Almost 6 years. Nathaniel actually stepped back. 6 years. 6 years of crossing paths and hallways. 6 years of never truly seeing her. His voice lowered. Why didn't you tell me? Sofia laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Tell you what, that the billionaire walking past me every morning had a daughter eating cereal alone before school. Nathaniel had no defense for that. Because she was right. Lily suddenly climbed off the chair and walked over holding her coloring book. Look, she said proudly. Nathaniel looked down. 3 stick figures. One tall, one small, one woman in the middle holding both hands. That's us, Lily smiled. Nathaniel swallowed hard. Even after everything, she still drew him into the picture. A loud knock suddenly hit the apartment door. All three of them startled. Sofia frowned immediately. I'm not expecting anyone. Nathaniel instinctively moved toward the door first. When he opened it, two men in expensive suits stood in the hallway. Corporate legal representatives. From Carrington Industries. Nathaniel's expression hardened instantly. What are you doing here? The older man adjusted his tie nervously. Mr. Carrington, your mother sent us. Of course she did. Sofia immediately went pale behind him. The lawyer pulled out a folder carefully. Ms. Bennett, he said professionally, we're prepared to offer a financial settlement in exchange for a signed confidentiality agreement regarding the child. Nathaniel went completely still. The child. Not Lily. Not his daughter. Just a legal inconvenience. Sofia's face flushed with humiliation. I'm not selling my daughter. That's not what this is, the lawyer lied smoothly. Nathaniel took the folder slowly, then looked at the number printed inside. $2 million. Enough money to disappear permanently. Again, Nathaniel looked up very slowly. My mother sent this? Yes, sir. Something cold entered his voice. Get out. The men hesitated. Mr. Carrington, we were instructed. I said get out before I fire both of you personally. They left immediately. The second the hallway emptied, Sofia whispered, she's trying to erase us. Nathaniel looked down at the folder in his hand, then toward Lily coloring peacefully at the table. And for the first time in his life, he realized his own family might be the most dangerous people in the city. The first headline appeared at 6:12 the next morning. Housemaid traps billionaire with secret child by breakfast. There were already 12 more. Tabloids flooded television screens with old photos of Sofia leaving grocery stores, entering hospitals, walking Lily to school. Every image carried the same implication: gold digger, manipulator, liar. Nathaniel watched the coverage from his penthouse office, while fury built slowly behind his ribs. One anchor actually smiled while saying, sources close to the Carrington family question whether the maid intentionally targeted the billionaire years ago. Nathaniel muted the television instantly. His phone rang. Mother. He answered immediately. You leaked the story. Evelyn Carrington sounded almost offended. I protected the company. You destroyed her. She destroyed herself the moment she brought that child into your engagement party. Nathaniel's jaw clenched hard enough to hurt. She's not some random woman, Mother. No. Evelyn replied coldly. She's a threat. Nathaniel stood and walked toward the windows overlooking Manhattan. You knew she was pregnant. Silence. That tiny dangerous silence again. Then Evelyn spoke carefully. I suspected. Nathaniel turned slowly. You told her I didn't want the baby. She was emotional and unstable. You lied to her. I protected you. Nathaniel actually laughed once. But there was nothing human in the sound. You ruined 8 years of my daughter's life. Evelyn's voice sharpened instantly. And I would do it again. The words hit like ice water. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly. How can you say that? Because powerful families don't survive by thinking emotionally. Nathaniel suddenly understood something terrifying. His mother genuinely believed love was weakness. Not metaphorically, literally. And that realization changed the way he looked at her forever. Meanwhile, across the city, Sofia's life was collapsing publicly. Neighbors stared when she left the apartment. Parents whispered outside Lily's school. One mother even pulled her child away from Lily during recess after recognizing her from television. Lily noticed. Children always notice. That afternoon, Nathaniel arrived outside the school personally. The second Lily saw him stepping out of the black SUV, her entire face lit up. You came. Nathaniel smiled despite everything. Of course I did. Then he noticed Lily wasn't carrying her backpack. Where's your bag? Her smile faded slightly. A boy dumped juice on it. Nathaniel's stomach tightened. Why? Lily looked down quietly. He said my mom tricks rich men. For one horrifying second, Nathaniel saw genuine shame in his daughter's face. A 7-year-old child embarrassed by adults she didn't even know. Something inside him snapped permanently. He crouched in front of her immediately. Listen to me carefully, he said softly. Your mother is one of the strongest people I've ever met. Lily looked uncertain. She is? Yes. What about you? Nathaniel swallowed. I'm still learning. That finally made her smile again. As they walked toward the SUV together, Nathaniel noticed paparazzi parked across the street. Cameras instantly started flashing. Lily grabbed his hand instinctively. Nathaniel held it tighter. Inside the car, his head of security handed him a sealed envelope. "We found something," the man said carefully. Nathaniel opened it slowly. Inside were copies of old financial records. Payments. Large payments. Made 8 years ago from a private Carrington account to a relocation agency in Chicago. Attached was Sofia's old name. Nathaniel's blood went cold. His mother hadn't just lied. She had paid to remove Sofia from his life. The realization physically hurt. Lily leaned against the car window beside him, humming softly to herself while rain rolled down the glass. Completely innocent. Completely unaware that adults with money and power had manipulated her entire existence before she could even speak. Nathaniel stared at the paperwork again. Then another page caught his eye. A private investigator report. One line circled in red ink. Subject: refused termination payment after pregnancy confirmed. Nathaniel stopped breathing for a second. Termination payment. His mother had tried to pay Sofia to get rid of the baby. Lily, his daughter. Nathaniel folded the papers slowly because his hands had started shaking. Then quietly asked his security driver, "Where's my mother right now?" The driver met his eyes in the mirror. "At the press conference downtown, sir." Nathaniel looked out into the stormy city. And somewhere deep beneath years of control and discipline, rage finally woke up. The press conference looked more like a public execution. Cameras crowded the ballroom. Reporters shouted over one another. Carrington Industries logos glowed behind the stage while Evelyn Carrington stood at the podium dressed in white like innocence itself. Nathaniel arrived just in time to hear his mother say, "Unfortunately, some individuals will exploit successful families for financial gain." The crowd immediately erupted with questions. Nathaniel stopped walking. Across the room, Sofia sat near the back holding Lily's hand tightly. Her face looked pale from days of public humiliation. She never wanted to come. Nathaniel knew that. But Evelyn's legal team threatened full custody investigations unless Sofia appeared publicly to resolve concerns. Manipulation disguised as professionalism. Classic Carrington strategy. Lily spotted Nathaniel first. Relief flashed across her face instantly. Nathaniel started moving toward them. Then another reporter stood. "Mrs. Carrington, are you claiming the child was planned as part of a setup?" Evelyn adjusted the microphone calmly. "We believe certain relationships were encouraged strategically." Sofia looked like she'd been slapped. Nathaniel's voice cut through the ballroom instantly. "That's enough." Every camera turned. Nathaniel walked forward slowly while reporters nearly trampled each other, trying to capture the moment. Evelyn's expression tightened. "You shouldn't be here." "No," Nathaniel replied coldly. "You shouldn't." The room went silent. Nathaniel stepped beside the podium. "You want the truth?" he asked the cameras. "Here it is. Sofia Bennett never asked me for money. Not once." Flashbulbs exploded everywhere. "She raised our daughter alone while this family buried her existence." Evelyn's jaw hardened. "Nathaniel, no. You're going to listen this time." Years of buried anger poured into his voice now. "You lied to me. You lied to her. And you nearly stole an entire childhood from my daughter because you were terrified of losing control of a company." Reporters practically vibrated with excitement. But Nathaniel no longer cared. He looked toward Sofia, then toward Lily. And suddenly the billions meant nothing. Evelyn leaned toward the microphone carefully. "You're emotional right now." Nathaniel laughed bitterly. "You know what's funny? That's the first honest thing you've said in years." The room exploded into whispers again. Then suddenly, Lily coughed. Soft at first. Sofia immediately looked down. "Baby." Lily tried to answer, but another cough interrupted her harder this time. Nathaniel's stomach dropped instantly. He saw it immediately, the color draining from her face. The panic in Sofia's eyes. "Lily," Sofia whispered sharply. The little girl pressed a hand against her chest. "I can't." Nathaniel moved instantly. "What's wrong?" Sofia looked terrified now. Her heart. Everything happened too fast after that. Lily's breathing became uneven. The ballroom descended into chaos. Some people stood. Others kept filming. Nathaniel dropped to his knees beside her. "Lily, look at me." Her tiny fingers grabbed his sleeve desperately. "I can't breathe." Fear unlike anything Nathaniel had ever experienced tore through him. Not business fear. Not reputation fear. Real fear. The kind that strips everything else away. "Call an ambulance." Sofia screamed. Nathaniel didn't wait. He lifted Lily into his arms immediately. She felt frighteningly small. Reporters shouted questions as he carried her toward the exit. Camera flashes exploded in his face. Nathaniel finally snapped. "Move." The roar in his voice stunned the entire room silent. Rain crashed outside as he burst through the building doors carrying his daughter against his chest. Sofia ran beside him crying openly now. Lily's breathing kept getting worse. "Nathaniel," Sofia sobbed. "She's turning blue." He felt pure terror hit him. The driver swung the SUV doors open before they even reached the curb. Nathaniel climbed inside with Lily in his lap, while Sofia held her tiny shaking hands. "Stay with me," Nathaniel whispered desperately. Traffic lights blurred outside through the storm. Lily's head rested weakly against his chest now. "Dad," the word almost broke him. "I'm here, baby." "You came." Nathaniel kissed the top of her wet hair. "I'm not leaving." The hospital finally appeared through the rain. Doctors rushed outside with a stretcher. Nathaniel carried Lily through the emergency doors himself, while nurses shouted medical questions around him. One doctor tried stopping him at intake. "Sir, we need paperwork." Nathaniel lost control completely. "I don't care about paperwork," he shouted. "Save my daughter." The entire emergency room froze. Not because he was a billionaire. Because for the first time in his life, Nathaniel Carrington sounded like a father terrified of losing his child. And as the doctors disappeared down the hallway with Lily, Sofia quietly whispered the words that terrified him even more. She was never supposed to get this bad this fast. The waiting room smelled like coffee, rain, and fear. Nathaniel Carrington had faced federal investigations, billion-dollar lawsuits, and corporate betrayals without ever visibly breaking. But sitting outside his daughter's operating room nearly destroyed him. Sofia sat beside him silently, her hands shaking around a paper cup she hadn't touched in over an hour. Her mascara had long since faded beneath tears and exhaustion. Neither of them spoke much, because every sentence felt too small for what they were carrying. Finally, sometime after midnight, Sofia whispered, "She used to ask about you every birthday." Nathaniel lowered his eyes slowly. "She did." Sofia nodded. "I told her you were probably helping people somewhere important." The guilt hit harder than ever. Because while Lily imagined him as some distant hero, he had been attending yacht parties and investor dinners completely unaware his child existed. Sofia suddenly reached into her purse and pulled out a small silver key. "She hid things under her bed," she said softly. "In a blue box." Nathaniel frowned slightly. "What things?" Sofia looked at him for a long moment. "Letters." An hour later, Nathaniel found himself inside Sofia's apartment alone while rain tapped softly against the windows. Lily's room looked painfully innocent. Tiny sneakers near the closet, crayon drawings taped to the wall, a stuffed rabbit missing one button eye. Nathaniel slowly knelt beside the bed and found the blue box taped underneath the frame exactly where Sofia said it would be. Inside were dozens of folded papers, some written by Sofia, some by Lily. Nathaniel unfolded the first letter carefully. "Dear Nathaniel, today Lily took her first steps while your interview played on television. She smiled when she heard your voice. I don't know why that broke my heart." His chest tightened instantly. The next letter hurt even more. "Lily got pneumonia tonight. I stayed awake holding her because she kept crying for a father she's never met. I told her you would have been scared too." Nathaniel sat on the floor reading until his vision blurred. One letter described Lily's first day of school. Another described the night Sofia worked 16 straight hours while Lily slept in the hospital beside nurses who felt sorry for them. Then Nathaniel found a tiny folded note written in messy child handwriting. "Dear Dad, Mama says maybe you can't find us yet, but I think maybe one day you will." Nathaniel finally broke. Not quietly, not elegantly. He buried his face in his hands and cried harder than he had since childhood. Because somewhere out there, his little girl had spent years hoping for him while he never even knew where to look. Hours later, the hospital finally called. Nathaniel drove through the storm with tears still drying on his face. And when he reached Lily's room, the first thing he saw was Sofia asleep beside the bed holding their daughter's hand like she was afraid the world might steal her too. 3 months later, the Carrington empire looked very different. Evelyn Carrington resigned quietly from the company after the board uncovered years of unethical payments and hidden agreements. The media storm eventually moved on like it always did. But Nathaniel never forgot what it cost to get there. Neither did Sofia, especially on quiet nights when Lily still woke up from nightmares clutching her chest. But she was healing. Slowly. Beautifully. And for the first time in years, she looked like a child. Instead of someone trying to survive adulthood too early, one Saturday morning, sunlight filled the small Brooklyn apartment Nathaniel refused to leave behind. His penthouse still existed. The private jets still existed. But somehow none of it felt more important than pancake batter on Lily's cheeks, while Sofia laughed beside the stove. Nathaniel stood there watching them both like a man seeing real life for the first time. Lily suddenly pointed a syrup-covered fork toward him. "You're burning the bacon again." Nathaniel looked offended. "It's called flavor. It's called smoke," Sofia laughed. And just like that, the kitchen filled with something Nathaniel once thought money could buy: peace. Later that afternoon, the three of them walked through Central Park while autumn leaves covered the sidewalks in gold and orange. No bodyguards. No cameras. No reporters. Just a mother, a father, and their daughter sharing roasted nuts from a paper bag. Lily walked between them holding both their hands proudly. Then suddenly she stopped. Nathaniel looked down immediately. "What's wrong?" Lily looked nervous for the first time all day. "I wanted to ask something." Nathaniel crouched beside her gently. "You can ask me anything." She twisted the edge of her sweater anxiously. "If I call you Dad now," her voice softened, "will you stay forever this time?" Nathaniel felt his throat close instantly. Not because the question hurt. Because a 7-year-old child still needed reassurance that love wouldn't disappear again. Nathaniel pulled her carefully into his arms. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for the years I missed," he whispered. Lily wrapped both arms around his neck tightly, then finally said the word naturally. "Dad." Nathaniel closed his eyes. For years he had chased wealth thinking success would make him powerful. But standing there holding his daughter beneath a sky full of falling autumn leaves, he finally understood something richer than money. A person can build an empire and still be empty. But one small child calling you Dad, with trust in her voice, that can rebuild a broken man from nothing. And as Sofia slipped her hand into his beside their daughter, Nathaniel realized love had not arrived too late after all. It had arrived exactly when he was finally ready to become the man his family deserved. This story reminds us that success means nothing if we lose the people who truly matter while chasing it. Nathaniel had wealth, influence, and power, yet he still lived an empty life because he failed to see the pain and sacrifices happening right in front of him. Sometimes the people carrying the heaviest burdens are the ones society notices the least. Sofia never asked for luxury or revenge. She only wanted to protect her daughter and give her a chance to survive. That quiet strength is something many people overlook in real life. The most emotional part of this story is realizing how deeply children crave love, presence, and reassurance more than money or status. A parent's absence can leave wounds that last for years, while a single moment of genuine love can begin healing a broken heart. This story was created for educational and inspirational purposes, encouraging viewers to value family, kindness, humility, and emotional responsibility in everyday life. Sometimes the greatest achievement is not building an empire, but becoming the kind of person your loved ones feel safe beside. As the writer of this story, I personally believe many people become so focused on survival and success that they forget to emotionally show up for the people they love most. I think kindness toward workers and strangers says more about someone's character than expensive clothes or social status ever will. I believe children remember how we made them feel far longer than they remember gifts or money. In my opinion, Sofia represents millions of parents who silently sacrifice everything without receiving recognition. I also believe pride destroys relationships faster than failure ever could. Nathaniel's journey shows that even powerful people can change when love forces them to face the truth. One thing I deeply believe is that forgiveness becomes possible when people finally take responsibility for the pain they caused. I think emotional presence is one of the rarest forms of love in modern life. To me, Lily symbolizes hope because children still believe people can become better. And personally, I hope this story encourages someone out there to call their family, apologize sincerely, or spend more time with the people who truly matter. This story contains some creatively enhanced elements and AI-assisted technology usage for the purpose of delivering meaningful entertainment, emotional experiences, and inspiring life lessons to viewers. Disclaimer: this content is created for storytelling, educational, and inspirational purposes only. Any resemblance to actual persons, or events is purely coincidental. The goal of this video is to encourage positive values, emotional awareness, compassion, and stronger human connections.